It is precisely 2 o'clock. Time for your webinar lineup. I tell you what, it is so good to be here with all of our friends again, taking a look here at what is going on and what's happening. I am so excited because it's hockey season again in America. We can now once again go out and talk about what's going on. I got my Washington Capitals hat on. If we start talking about baseball, I can switch to my Reds hat. We're going to be supporting all the teams, getting back into the swing of things here. We've been running with this seminar for a while and dealing with some of the issues that have been happening in the industry as we've moved forward with a very interesting year. We started out really looking at the broad topics, the big issues, and then we've narrowed it down and started talking about some of the micro issues uh, for the industry. And we've talked about sales technique. We've talked about CRM. We've talked about hiring folks. We've talked about innovation, technology. All of those different issues have become very important during that time. But here at manufacturedhomes.com, because I am the executive director of industry relations, and my past role was at MHI, being involved with state associations. I've always felt that one of the very important roles that we should be talking about on how to thrive and emerge in this year that we're having right now is involvement in your state association. State associations are so very important and so broadly deep into the industry itself and where we're going and where we're headed that I really felt like there had to be a time that we talked about this. Now we have two unique points of views coming from two unique from two very unique states and from two unique very person. We have the newbie. For Lance Latham, if you have not met Lance yet, you probably have heard through the grapevine that down in Alabama, Doris Heydrich has decided to retire. She is retiring at the end of the year. Lance is going to be the new executive director. Background, he was in the state legislature and worked in the leadership office, and then came right over to the association and started doing government affairs there. Lance, welcome. To the new guy, welcome.
Appreciate
it. And then we have the forever young, the always young, Tawny Payton. Tawny has been in the industry now since 2007. She actually runs two associations, one being the Utah Housing Alliance and also the Rocky Mountain Home Association. So we brought these two together because, and I think the unique thing about this is you have really two different makeups of states, one a little more conservative, one a little more on the liberal side. You have two different types of associations, one with a little more community involvement, one with a little more land home type of based. And so I thought that would be a good makeup as we take a look at how you should be involved in your state association as you move forward and look at this business model that you're setting up. We've talked about all these other things, but this is one of the tools that I really think you can use to find yourself going into the next year and into the future that can really help. Now, this is like the easy question for you guys, right? Most everybody says when you ask them, why do I join my state association? Almost all of them end up saying government affairs, right?
Sure.
But government affairs has changed this year. I think for both of you, government affairs has changed, haven't they? Tawny?
Very much so, Rick. COVID hit mid-session in Colorado. So all of a sudden we went from meeting multiple times a week with face-to-face interactions to all of a sudden the legislature going on emergency recess and everything really coming to a halt. And, and then trying to really determine how do we move forward and what happens to this year. We actually were able to work on a couple of bills with the bill sponsors to amend them to make them better, I guess, if that's, I don't know if that's the right term.
Make them less worse. How about that?
Yes. Yes, to make them less worse. But really, just trying to understand, where do we go now? What happens with the relationships that we've built? Really, the progress that we've made, and so things have changed a lot.
And I know it's been successful. The reason I bring that up, because it has been successful for you, that I think in years gone past, you may have had trouble getting those amendments through, but the way the legislature turned out for you in this one, you were able to actually get some traction and get some things done on some of those bills. And let's face it, they were bad bills, and you try to make bad bills a little bit better when you know they're going to go through.
Exactly. Last year, following the elections, the legislative session in Colorado was difficult. There was one specific bill that we fought hard to kill, and every point that we brought up, recognizing concerns within the bill, the other side, the proponents of the bill, would go back, amend the bill, and actually make those points worse. So actually, it was it was a brutal session. Not only do we still have scars, but I don't know if all the wounds have healed yet. But This year we were able to work together to amend the bills. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, we knew that something was going to pass, and so it was important that we work with the other side.
Lance, you come from the background where you had worked in the state legislature. You have a little bit shorter legislative session than Donnie has. How did your legislature work out this year, and how did you work your members into making contact with all those folks?
Sure. Well, our legislative session got interrupted early on by the COVID thing. We got maybe a third of the way into it, and then legislators went home for a couple of months. By our state constitution, they were required to end the session on the 18th of May. And so that led to a very hurried, it last 5 to 7 days there of the session. So there wasn't a whole lot of legislation that actually got passed. I think actually only 13 bills got passed this year. Not a lot for us. Where it did become an issue, and where an issue that's still unresolved, and where we may end up having a special session, is trying to get some kind of legislation passed to protect businesses from the lawsuits. You may have heard in the federal discussions over the bills there, especially out of the one being discussed in the Senate right now, trying to find protections for businesses from frivolous lawsuits. Certainly not trying to stop the ones that have merit, but the ones that are that are punitive to businesses, or not punitive, but are hurtful to businesses without necessarily being fully justified. So we've been trying at a state level before all this with the national stuff. We'd already been trying at the state level to try and pass that. We weren't able to get it done because the House of Representatives wanted to only deal with the budgets in those last 5 days and then be done. Because they had their reasons for that and all. But so legislatively, we've had a lot to do there. But the other thing that shifted for us is kind of where we've had to target. Normally, our focus is the legislature. But this year, because of COVID, we had to focus a lot more on the executive branch and the local governments, because that's where executive orders were getting issued and things of that nature. So early on, we had to work with the governor's office to try and make sure that our industry was included as an essential industry. And we were. And so that allowed our retailers to stay in business, our manufacturers to stay in business. We had to deal with local governments a lot on some issues, because even if our industry as a whole was able to stay in business, you can have the manufacturing plant build the plant, you can have the retailer selling it and the installer setting it up. But if the local government offices are closed and they're not issuing permits for hooking up the power, hooking up the plumbing, then it doesn't do you any good, and that customer can't move into their home. So we had to deal with some of those local government issues, as well as dealing with the governor's office to try and authorize those local governments to address those issues as well. So our target kind of shifted from the legislature to the governor's office largely, and then also some of these local governments as a result. And we didn't have to do a whole lot as far as getting our members to make calls and emails and stuff.
That's where I wanted to go with both of you. As you take a look at this, I mean, you guys had suddenly a new target. Before, you never put much emphasis on the governor's office until you got a bill passed or you got tried to get a bill vetoed. Now you have the governor making the rules, right? Both of you have it. Both states have had extensive executive orders. How did you engage your membership from that level of switching from state legislators to now helping out on the local level, on the gubernatorial level? How did that work for both of you in that situation?
Well, for us in Alabama, a lot of it is really just more keeping the members up to date with what's going on. We've had 15 executive orders issued by the governor since March. The requirements are changing often. In fact, the governor issued one just yesterday extending the order we were currently under, which limits retail centers, all retail, not just our industry, but retail centers to a 50% occupancy rate. A few weeks ago, she issued a statewide mask ordinance. We'd already had some of those going on locally, but that happens statewide now. She was announcing yesterday that she was extending that and applying it to children in school who are going to be returning to school in a couple of weeks. About half the children in the state, maybe more like 60%, are expected to be in person. The other half are probably going to be virtual or online. So just keeping our members up to date on that kind of stuff, the sanitation requirements in their businesses, what they have to do for their employees, that sort of thing. A lot of it has just been keeping them in the loop as to what's going on, because it is changing so much, and it can change tomorrow. They could come out and make a new rule or completely change what they've been saying. So that's.
Tony, how about you? How did you guys work with the governor's office?
So our main point, our first point of contact was our lobbyist. She was instrumental in representing our industry, making sure that our industry was included as essential, and also providing us with any new updates. From there, I was constantly emailing our members about new executive orders. Also, we created a specific page on our website with various links to executive orders, various links to services, also local government pages. So
which actually got recognition from the governor's office because you did such a good job of keeping up with it. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you. That would be really nice. But I'm a little bit jealous that Lance said that they've only had 15 executive orders, because Colorado has had 151. So,
wow.
So some of them are extensions of executive orders, but they have, and so even when they extend them or change one word or a combination of the two, they renumber the executive order. But yes, there's been 151 so far.
Final question under government affairs. We take a look at that final topic down there and talk about local government planning and zoning. I'm kind of curious. Have you seen that on the planning and zoning level, because of the restrictions, all meetings going to online meetings and things of that nature, have ordinances, especially zoning ordinances, slowed down a little bit? Or are they still keeping at the same pace that you've seen in the past?
One thing what I've seen is that things slowed down in the beginning as the local governments tried to figure out how to handle meetings, etc., while in the middle of a pandemic. It's nice that I'm able to connect with them via Zoom or whatever platform they're using, to meet with them, to share our comments. But now that I guess Zoom and virtual, these internet meetings are the new normal thing, I guess the pace has picked back up. One of my requests has been, when they're passing ordinances that are so critical to an industry, is it really necessary that they pursue it at the same pace that they have when we were able to meet in person and get all stakeholders involved?
Yeah, I would say in Alabama, they've continued to have meetings. There's not been a lot as it relates specific to our industry that's changed. There is a hesitation to have meetings at any level of government right now, just because of the limits. Most government officials want to be able to allow the public to speak and address the members of the body, be that the legislature or the local city council or what have you. But most of these government buildings can't, at least in Alabama, a lot of them can't accommodate, at least not a large number of people coming to speak. So they've kept it kind of just routine, just doing the essentials, but we've not seen a lot of changes. But one thing I do want to mention too, Rick, on the lobbying side of things with the state government that I forgot to mention a moment ago, is that a lot of times, we know the legislative sessions last for 3, 4, 5 months, but the lobbying work does go on year round, not just when the legislature's in session. And a good example of that is a bill we're expecting to come in the spring in the next regular legislative session in February, March, from a state senator related to our industry that would increase our insurance liability minimums that we have to have. It'd be a drastic increase. So I've had conversations with him for a couple of months. I've been talking with our members, trying to gather data that we can use to go with them, working with other groups. I'm a big believer in forming coalitions. So we're trying to work with other business groups to address this issue. So when we talk about lobbying and talk about what we as associations do for our members to help them on the government end, it's not just at that city council meeting, at that zoning board meeting, or at that legislative session. It's a year-round thing. It's conversations offline that happen one-on-one sometimes with folks or in groups to try and address issues and hopefully stop them before they get to the floor in the first place, or amend them, like Tony said, to try and make them less bad. So there's a lot that goes on year-round with this stuff. It's not just something that happens for a few months there, and that's really why you need an association looking out for you on the political issues, because it's constant.
And I think probably more than anything else, that is the first thing we look at. That is a great conclusion to that sort of point of why you should be a member and engaged in your state association, is because of the complexity and the year-round nature of lobbying. If you look at it from getting involved with your MHI when you do a fly-in, all the way down to local government planning and zoning. Or you do a fly, you go to Homes on the Hill, you do any of those types level from top to bottom. This is such a complex area, and so vitally important to the future of local members' future, that this I always thought was always the number one spot, but following pretty close behind it is the whole idea of industry education. Whether it's being, things are changing right now, whether it's, I'm always amazed when I just go to simple board meetings, what I end up learning through the interactions, but in the education that I get. But you guys end up doing a lot of education for people in the state that deal with installations, appraisals, things like that. Give me another little background on some of the things that you do that would help the members be engaged in this for their future.
So one thing that I actually hosted last week was my very first membership Zoom. I had a total of 61 attendees. So I was
pretty good number.
I'm sorry?
Pretty good number.
Yes, especially for our first Zoom. I was grateful that so many people participated. It was specific to the law changes with the Mobile Home Park Act. So there was a lot of information to cover. There was a safety clause at the end of the two Mobile Home Park Act bills this year, which meant that upon the governor's signing of that bill, it was effective immediately. So it was critical that we educated our members on those law changes immediately, because the disclosure requirements, etc., were effect as of June 30th. So really providing that information and, sending it out in emails, providing it over Zoom meetings, newsletters, etc., are all resources for providing education for our members.
And Tony, I know one of the things that you do, because I've been invited to it before and I've been able to speak at it, is you actually in the fall winter time frame do a community only session where you bring in speakers to talk about and to educate people about best practices when it comes to running communities. I assume that probably, I shouldn't assume, but it may not be happening this year, but we may be doing it virtually again this year. But I know you do that every year as one of the things that you offer to your members that run communities. Lance, how about you? Tell me a little bit about the education that goes on or that you're planning for, how you're going to be doing it in the coming year.
Sure. So education is one of our big areas that we're trying to focus on. And we're in a little bit different position in Alabama, because whereas a lot of the states out there can provide that continuing education and that licensing education for their members, we're not allowed to do that here in Alabama. That's provided by our SAA. Now, we have developed over the last few years a really good relationship with our SAA, and they've started involving us in those classes, so we help teach half that class. But the people in this industry, our retailers, our community owners who are getting their salesperson's license, our installers and others, they have to go through the commission still to get that. So it becomes a bit of a challenge for us to try and provide education to the members that is beneficial when they can't count it towards their CE. But we've done this in a few different ways, and we like I said, we've gotten involved in the CE classes. We are looking to expand and offer more classes. When the COVID thing first happened in March, we work a lot with Ken Corbin. A lot of the listeners, I think, are probably familiar with Ken. If you're not, he's a great resource. We work with him on the classes. We got with him early on, and he developed a 2-week plan, a day-by-day plan for how our salespeople in our industry can continue to not only maintain business, but even find new customers in the middle of a government shutdown. And we did that class here. It started here in Alabama. It was pretty successful. I think Kim went on to do it in 10 or 11 other states, as well as with MHI. So we're kind of proud of the fact that we helped start that on the education front. But we are looking at other tools to try and provide resources to our members that are beneficial to them, all geared with the goal of helping them ultimately sell more homes or rent out more homes. Another thing we're doing, though, education-wise, focuses more on the installer segment of our industry, because that is in Alabama an issue where we've got a lot of people who've been doing this a long time. They're getting ready to retire. A lot of younger people aren't necessarily getting into that line of work. And at the same time, while most installations go very well in the state of Alabama, when we have a customer complaint, most of the time it is due to improper installation. A lot of times because the site prep wasn't done properly. So you've got this dual issue of trying to improve the quality of installations to cut down on that number of complaints, and also trying to bring more people in to the industry. So our thought was to work with the community college system to try and create a certification class for people who want to get into the installer segment. They still have to go through the commission to get their license, but this is kind of like taking a class to prepare you for that process, sort of like going to law school before taking the bar exam, or going to medical school before taking that licensure exam. So we had some success with it early on, the first semester that happened last fall. Then COVID kind of knocked us out of our plans for the spring session, but we're hoping to bring it back, maybe do a shorter version. And not just for installers, but for retailers who need to understand what's required for a home to be installed properly, because they have a legal responsibility too, and can be held legally liable for a home that's not installed properly. Also, just from the standpoint of customer satisfaction, because the customer isn't going to blame the installer if their home isn't set up right. They're going to blame the retailers. So we wanted to try and give retailers a better educational background on installation. Same for people in the plants who need to understand, when you're building this home, what's the end result going to be once it gets set up? How does that work? They need to understand that process too. So education as it relates to installers is something we're focusing on a lot. We'd like to get into more, I see on the PowerPoint there, appraisals, trying to help train appraisers to understand, about manufactured homes and how that works, because there's a lot of misunderstanding on their end sometimes. We do a lot to try and educate the public about our product as well, and the quality of the product and the safety of the product in storms, which is an issue we deal with a lot here in Alabama. Trying to educate people in the meteorology community who have a lot of older, out-of-date thoughts on the safety of manufactured homes and storms. So there's a lot of different categories of education we provide, and it goes to a lot of different resources, not just our members or people in our industry, but also to the public, to lawmakers, to, like I said, journalists and meteorologists and others. So it's a kind of a broad focus and a big umbrella that all falls into the category of education there that we do.
I've always been kind of amazed at not amazed, but impressed, is a better word, at the way executive directors in the state associations have been able to come up with unique ways to reach out to these. Appraisal installation, over in North Carolina, Brad Lovin actually took a group of appraisers to a factory and did a 3-hour appraisal, even gave them lunch. At a factory, and walked them through to take them through what the process is. And Kentucky is doing competitions with people where they're bringing people out of the community colleges and the high schools and having competitions on putting them on the equipment that they would be using, and suddenly getting them the idea of what it would be like to move a house, or what it would be like to move some dirt. And so I think, I think each state has a different look at this. But I've always been impressed by that. The other thing that I would kind of add on the education side is, I know that both of you all have on your websites and have available to you the videos that we have prepared at manufacturedhomes.com. For all of those who are listening, your state directors have the ability to get free items that you can put on your Facebook page, your social media, your website. If you haven't gotten them, drop me a line, drop your state executive director a line, and they will be able to link you up with some of that to get you into that. Here is where I think the rubber meets the road for both of y'all, is that you really do become the face of the industry for not only your state association, but for those who are members, who are not members, for anything out there that has to do with manufactured factory built homes. You are the face of the industry, and that comes to whether you're talking to consumers, whether you're talking to, you mentioned storms when they come up. You get the storm calls, Lance, down in the wind zone, and even the general public when they look and they say, I have something that I want to look at. They pick up the phone and they try and find out. Your name pops up in the Google search. So I think that's one of the more, this is one of my favorite slides that I put up here, but just because of the fact that I think it's important for the members who are watching this to understand, or even the potential members, people who haven't joined, is that there is a face of the association in your state. And for Colorado and Alabama, you're looking at it.
Absolutely. And some of the points on this slide, I mean, they touch on some of the key areas. One of the things that has changed for the Colorado Association is that we recently launched a new website with the help of manufacturedhomes.com. So what that's done is
website, by the way. Yes, we are. Go before you go. What's the website address?
Oh, the website address is coloradohome.org.
Now tell us about the site.
It's a consumer-facing website. So the intention of the site is to generate home sales, to generate interest in lot leases. It's really a site that's geared toward the customer and showing them really how our industry has evolved. It's not the mobile home or trailer that's so, just that we get, that we seem to get affiliated with when we're talking with folks. So, just changing the face of our industry with consumers is a great first step. Also interacting with lawmakers, asking them to home centers to tour homes. So that's another face of the industry, in addition to the association and the exec and the other staff and the board. I've been contacted by the press, following the two bills that passed this year in Colorado, and I responded to their questions, and I was published in their article. I was quoted in their article. So we definitely are the face of the industry, and so really helping to promote the industry is so important. And as I mentioned, this is the new website for Colorado. I'm super excited about that and hope to get the Utah group on board with the new site project as well. New website in not quite 2 months has generated 27 specific home quote requests to our members. So folks are doing the 3D tours, they're doing the virtual tours of these homes, and they're reaching out to my members directly because there's a quote request on the site. It sends an email to that member that provides that specific brand of home, and I am also copied on that email request. So,
and I know we were talking the other day how you thought how cool it was. You've gotten, since it's gone up, you froze up a little bit there on your response on the screen. But in the month and a half that you've been really up and running, it took a while for us to get you to the #1 page. But you've been basically generating a lead every other day for someone in the state. And she was Tawny was talking about how excited it was for her as an executive director to pick up the phone and interact with her membership to say, by the way, that lead you got today, that was from me. That was from our state association. Lance, again, you've been down in that. You're down in that wind zone. Tawny gets snow, but you get wind.
It's true.
You have to deal with the meteorologist all the time.
We do. We deal a lot with the meteorology and with the press. Before I get into that, I kind of wanted to piggyback on what Tawny was saying, because we have a similar strategy towards trying to steer A lot of our communications work is geared towards steering customers to our retailers and our community owners. And we put a fair amount of money every month into that effort. Generally meant to our basic strategy is we put out pictures on the website because the picture says 1,000 words, and it kind of does the talking for us. It corrects the stereotypes, but it also generates interest. In fact, one of my proudest moments was we had a post a month or two ago that went up, and somebody accused us of false advertising, said that home couldn't possibly be a manufactured home. And I was very proud of that fact, that they thought it looked that good. And so our strategy is we put the pictures out there. When people click on the link for the ad, it takes them to our Find a Retailer page or our Find a Community Owner page. Or if they comment on it, you can look at our page, and any post we have, you'll just see comment after comment saying, "That's beautiful. Where can I find it?" And I respond back with, one of our retailers would love to help you find the home that fits your budget and is right for you. And you can find your retailer by visiting our website, and I include the link. Last month alone, we had 23,000 people go to our website, and we just modified our Find a Retailer page and our Find a Community Owner page, where a person can go in, all they got to do is type in their town or their city, and they can find every retailer within a 50-mile radius of that location. So we know they're doing it because our bounce rate ticked back up, which means they're going on, they're finding it, and then they're clicking off to go see how they can get to that retailer. So I would love to have a referral page like Tawny's talking about with her website. I would love to have something like that on ours, so I can sit here and say, John Smith here went to our website and wants you to help them find a home, and I can point to a specific person. I don't have that yet, but I can say that we are generating thousands of people going to our website looking for our members. And so that's a benefit that you really can't afford to miss out on if you're in this industry in Alabama.
So let's stop right there before we go anyplace else. Be engaged with your state association. Not only does all these other things we're talking about, but it's going to send you customers. We've got two folks right here who are sending leads out to, if you're not a member of Alabama, if you're not a member of Colorado and Utah, leads are being sent to your competitors because you're not a member, because you're not on this list and you're not with these folks. That if that's not good enough reason for you to join your state association, then I can't give you anything more. I can't give you anything more that's going to make you pay that monthly or that yearly dues number.
That's right. Everything we do is all geared towards how do we help our members buy another home. So getting back to your original question, though, I apologize for getting off track there, but about the weather stuff, yeah, we do get a lot of issues like that. That's an ongoing thing for us. A lot of it is, and I mentioned earlier, we have a good relationship with our Manufactured Housing Commission, our SAA. So we'll coordinate with them. We'll go and we'll talk with them about what they find when you have a storm that does some damage. A lot of times, the damage that destroys that manufactured home would have destroyed any kind of home, did destroy other kinds of homes. In Alabama, it happens that a lot of times in the areas where the tornadoes hit, it is predominantly manufactured homes in that area. The tornado that hit Beauregard, Alabama last year, 80% of the homes were manufactured homes. So, of course, most of the people who unfortunately passed away in that storm were living in a manufactured home. But a lot of times the media will take that number and say, if you're in a manufactured home, you're not safe in a storm. Well, that's not true. Not necessarily any safer. I mean, I'm in a site-built house right now that was built in 1930, and it's probably not as safe as most modern manufactured homes are in the event of a tornado coming. So we do try to educate the media and reach out to meteorologists with this. We did a video series a couple of years ago for the public, just talking about how safe our homes are. We're fortunate that the state's former EMA director, a man named Art Faulkner, now works with us on the side. He does a handful of things for us, but one of the things he does is also helping consult for us on issues related to storm safety. He can speak with some authority to the press, as well as I speak to the press as well, of course, about it. But he's a good source with that credentials that he can talk to the media about these issues, talk to the public, and that's a very helpful thing that we've had as well. So we try to talk to the media to address these things. We've had some success. We've seen them start to shift away a little bit from saying, if you live in a mobile home, get out, to saying, they used to say, if you live in a manufactured home, now they say a mobile home, because technically that is a little bit older home. It might not be as safe. And a lot of them are just saying, if you're in the path of the storm, you need to get to a safe place. And they leave it at that. They don't specify, because that's the truth. Regardless of the kind of home you're in, if you're in the path of a storm, the only safe place you can be is a FEMA-approved storm shelter or out of the path. And that's all we really want, is for them to quit singling out our product. and you do end up sometimes telling people to get out of a manufactured home that is perhaps safer, and you get into a structure that might not be as safe. And so we're trying to educate about that sort of thing as well. So there's a lot that goes on there with that. A lot of it right now for us is just trying to gather data that we can use, because a lot of the studies that are out there are flawed. And most people who've been through college or grad school understand every study's got its weak points, and these studies are no different. They've got a lot of weak points out there. It's just there's not a lot of emphasis nationally or otherwise to really study this issue a lot. So we're looking to try and fill in that gap some as an association, and try to get that data so that we can get an honest assessment about what is going on with these homes when a storm happens. Are they safe? We believe they are. We've seen tests that show that they are. We want to find more data that proves that. And if there's something we need to do to make the product even better, then we want to know that too. We're certainly not sitting here trying to just push one message. We want to be open to what the data tells us, but trying to communicate with the public, with the media, where there are a lot of old stereotypes about the home. That's a big part of what we do as the face of the industry here in the Southeast, where we have those hurricanes and tornadoes that we have to deal with.
That gets us, I think, kind of into where we're looking at it, is that you all are really, as the state association, are changing the ones out of the front line of changing the image of the industry and really driving the future. A lot of it, I'm kind of interested in hearing that a lot of it involves the support with, with partnering with different organizations other than just your members, workforce development, education. Real quick, before we go to the final slide here, what do you think is, for both of you in different parts of the state, what do you think is going to drive the future of the industry?
Something that there seems to be an increase in is, and I'm speaking more to the community piece, but it's really the consumer, the resident interaction with their lawmakers. That's really been kind of propelled a lot of the focus of the legislation that I have been working on in both states for a number of years now. And really part of my focus
in other states like Iowa too.
Okay. Yeah. And
the consumer, the residents pushing back.
Exactly. And with just with the internet and so many different social media platforms, people are so connected now, and so they're able to assemble quicker, faster, and just reach out to whomever they need to, and they're and just groups are strategizing at the national level, and then just deploying everyone at the local level. So things are happening very quickly. One of my focuses, and I've really been I've had more of a desire in this area more the last couple of weeks than any time before, and that is really directing lawmakers to look at ways to incentivize programs and really encourage businesses and investors to participate in this space instead of really punishing the businesses in our industry, and that's really what I feel like it's been, and it's still continuing to be, and really coming up with new ideas and new programs to help work with local governments, state and federal lawmakers to create incentive programs, to encourage more communities, to encourage more affordable housing. We're in an amazing industry, and we can provide all of those things, but we need to work with lawmakers, and they need to really work with us instead of punishing us. A comment that one of our attorneys makes at every public hearing that we attend, and that is, you get better response with a carrot versus a stick. And so really focusing on that carrot.
Although sometimes the stick works pretty well too. Before we get to the last slide here, what do you think is driving the future?
I think that technology, of course, continues to change. Social media platforms are changing by the year. Now you got TikTok, it's been Instagram, it's been Facebook. I think that a big thing in addition to all the things that Tawny mentioned just now, I'm working with legislatures and government officials to try and incentivize home ownership, maybe a home buyer's tax, first-time home buyer's tax credit, for example, stuff like that. I think is helping our retailers and our manufacturers better understand the mind of the home buyers. We know what home buyers want as far as a house goes. We know what they're buying, but understanding what experience they want when they step on that retail lot or when they walk into that rental office, what are they looking for from that salesperson or that leasing agent? What are they looking for in general? If they choose not to buy or not to rent, why not? We want to know the answer to that kind of question. We want to know where are they? How do we find them? What apps are they using? What websites are they going to? What videos on YouTube? What channels on YouTube are they watching? Because that tells us and our members how we can advertise and make sure that the people who are looking for a home or who are interested in hearing what we have to say know that we're out there and can find us. And so I think, being able to do a little public opinion research on that end is something that I personally would like to try and do in the future to help better prepare our retailers and installers and our retailers and manufacturers and community owners, and then helping them better understand, because the dynamics have changed. When a customer walks on your lot, there's word of mouth, yes, and all, but a lot of times they've already looked you up on the internet anyway. That's why
they've already been to the virtual lot.
Yeah,
that's what we're all about at manufacturedhomes.com. We create the virtual lot, and I actually wrote something today for a column for somebody that by the time they walk onto your lot, they've been through your virtual store.
Exactly. It's like doing an interview for a job. Like, that employer didn't call you in to have you read in person what they already read about you on your resume. They know what you're about. They're looking for that special something. They're looking, for something different or something to help them better understand that they couldn't have seen on the website or couldn't have gotten off the resume in that example. So helping our retailers, helping our community owners better understand what is it really that the customer's wanting when they step on your lot. That's something where associations can really be a benefit to our members and help lead towards the future as well, especially with the changing nature of technology.
That's a great segue to the final question that we have here before we take questions from our audience. What do you find, and Tawny, this is probably more geared towards you because the young pup hasn't been around too much yet to know the differences. But the forever young, Tawny Payton can answer this. What has changed over time, if anything, between you came on board in 2007? What do you see different now that your members are expecting from you? We talked yesterday about we're in an instantaneous communication time. Is that something that they look at, is that they expect things now?
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much for the forever young thing. I I kind of also interpret that into in denial. But yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, the legislative support is so critical. Legislative support, help with local governments and even regulators. And something that I experienced and just had a conversation about it yesterday was, help protecting the industry. And the example of that from the conversation yesterday was, hey, there's this entity or there are these business professionals that are not registered to sell homes in our state, but yet they're advertising that they're listing this home for sale. And so helping to regulate the industry, our members are required to register, they're required to have the bond and the escrow account, etc. So why isn't this other professional who's not registered getting away with it? So really helping to make sure that that everyone is following the rules, right?
Everybody deserves a level playing field. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a conversation that I have, and the industry is great at policing itself. If there are issues just with workmanship, etc. I'll receive phone calls and I can be that go-between to that regulator, that bureaucrat, whatever, to communicate that there's an issue of some sort. So that's helpful as well. Also just providing the voice. Many of these members don't receive communications from regulators of whatever level. And so being the voice, providing the information to the members, receiving their comments, and really representing the industry on their behalf. And also strategizing, really deciding as a group what are our goals? And how can we implement those goals to move our industry further within our state, but also within the country. And sometimes members just call because they just want me to listen. they'll be complaining, and I ask, what do you want me to do about this? And the response is, well, nothing. I just wanted to blow off some steam.
Lance, let me flip that question a little bit with you. And here's how I'll flip it, is that you've come from the government side now into the association side. What are members expecting from you that surprised you?
Ooh, I think, I don't know that I have necessarily an immediate answer to that particular.
I threw you a curveball here. We didn't practice this one. I know. I'm suddenly going different when I'm done here.
That's good. No, I mean, I think that a lot of our members didn't necessarily know what to expect from an association. The problem we had when I first came on was that our members are mostly the member companies, so the individual salespersons in that lot didn't necessarily know who we were. So now that they're getting to know, because we've been trying to reach out more and get more involved, they're starting to learn more about who we are and what we do. So our goal is to hopefully anticipate the problems before they happen, and success for us is when the members don't even have to think about us because we've already taken care of it and they can focus on their business. Right. That's easier in Alabama. That's more of a pro-business friendly, or more of a business-friendly state, as opposed to some of the headaches that Tawny's having to deal with, where you do have more problems and you are playing, maybe a little bit more defense on some things. For us, our hope is that the only time they have to hear from us is when it's something good, like, hey, here's some referrals, or here's an update on what's going on in the industry, or from news, that sort of thing. So I think that what the members expect from us is kind of wide open, because they haven't necessarily, a lot of them haven't been as familiar with us, so they don't necessarily know what to expect from us. And we're trying to grow
expectations to some degree.
Right. So it's kind of wide open for us, and we're trying to grow and develop. When I interviewed for the executive director position, I told them that I organize things like a puzzle. You have these different pieces that all fit together. And for me, the 5 main pieces were political, education, industry research, like we talked about, communications, and then member benefits, which is kind of an open-ended category that we still need to kind of flesh out and figure out what that might be. So that's kind of the thing this question speaks to, is that open field of what is it that we can do that we're not already doing. And we're looking at a lot of different options and looking at what some of the other states are doing to kind of see, like Amy in Wisconsin and what they've got going on. They've got a really great members only section for their website, where if you're a member, you can get access to template documents for things like lease agreements, eviction notices, other things, stuff for the retailers as well. So, and she's been very generous to help us with sharing resources. I know a lot of the other executives have been very generous with their time, their advice, with their resources to help us kind of grow what we're trying to do in Alabama. So things like that, looking beyond not just what other MH associations are doing, but what other associations in general are doing for their members. There may be some opportunities to provide insurance benefits, for example, stuff like that.
One thing the members that don't know, or the non-members that are watching this right now, is when I was at MHI and I was dealing with state associations, I was always so very impressed at how many emails went back and forth between executive directors during a week. This not so, when a problem and an issue comes up, generally speaking, you can bet that somebody in the industry, some state, has already dealt with it. And there is a group serve that goes out. I am so disappointed I'm no longer on it, because I'm now no longer dealing with the federated state side of it. But it was so cool to watch the members saying, has anybody dealt with non-conforming use in a manufactured home park when one is taken out and back out? And suddenly people are going, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, we have a published case. Oh yeah, we have this. And I mean, just the wealth of information amongst all of these, so that when Tawny, when Lance are dealing with this, they're not really dealing with it alone. There really is this group effort with all the states that have associations who work together and do this. I'm going to, speaking of what people expect from you, I'm going to give you now what people expect from you who have been watching. The all-knowing soothsayer, Scott Stroud, are you there?
I am here, Rick, with a number of questions that have come up from our audience.
The first one is probably who is going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I know everybody wants to know that. With me wearing my Rod Langway Hall of Fame autographed jersey, it's going to be the Washington Capitals. After that, what's the second question?
Well, that pretty much wraps up the questions that were here. Everybody was asking that question, Rick. No, actually, most of the questions, and I'm going to try to consolidate some of them as we can for time, but with new initiatives coming out that are putting new and welcomed attention on the industry, like MH Advantage, that is opening up manufactured housing to the interest of builders and developers as well as new buyers. What attention is being given to educating those individuals, the state appraisers, local zoning boards, city planners, and others as to how this product can fit in with their mandate for affordable housing? And do you see this creating new challenges for us moving forward?
Well, I think that there's definitely a market for those kinds of houses. Obviously, it varies from state to state, and it's definitely something that we need to educate more appraisers and other people like you're talking about on these options. In Alabama, we're heavily a retail state, but a lot of our homes are more in the rural areas where the MH Advantage or MH Choice homes may not necessarily qualify because, like, for example, having to have the paved driveway or whatever, a lot of people in any kind of house don't necessarily have that in some of the more rural areas of the state and where a lot of our homes are being placed. So definitely we're definitely looking for incentives like that. And there's definitely some areas in the state where we could possibly have, a neighborhood of MH Choice homes or MH Advantage homes. But you're going to see more of those kinds of homes, I think, in maybe other parts, maybe Tennessee, maybe Florida especially, maybe a few other states, less so than in Alabama specifically. But where it is possible, we do need our associations. And I know a lot of those association execs are out there actively working to try and educate lawmakers, educate appraisers, educate local city council members and zoning boards about this possibility, because the affordable housing crisis is a very big problem. But the thing about problems is there are also opportunities, and there's an opportunity for our industry in addressing this problem. And so, so I don't know if that fully answers the question, but that's kind of my thoughts on it. Tony, did you have any?
I talked about it when we went out to Aurora and spoke with the industry group, or the small group of citizens and elected officials there that were trying to look at the affordable housing crisis. That was something I know that you and I brought up with them, was the programs being offered by Fannie and Freddie that a developer could come in, in a city where affordable housing was started at $350,000 or something silly like that.
Right. Absolutely. When I think, just presenting that as an option, right? Just the more education we can provide our lawmakers with, our local government, officials and our planning and zoning people. I think that planning and zoning staff are critical, they really can make or break, I don't know about maybe an industry, but a project, for sure. We're actually dealing with something right now with a specific city where they're looking at, creating a separate MH only zone. And I know there are other areas around the country that have that, but it's really exposing them to other options so that it's not so restrictive, so that we have some flexibility to grow and to offer other housing choices.
Yeah. And a lot of the questions went to education of these elements, like your appraisers, your local zoning board, city planners, et cetera. And whether it has to do with the new initiatives or just the absolute need for affordable housing, are manufactured homes being considered for in areas where affordable homes are more critical, and the need for them is more critical?
I'm seeing them the manufactured home communities are being recognized as a critical source of affordable housing. More and more state and local governments are recognizing really our value. Sometimes they are placing restrictions on our industry to preserve us, which is unfortunate. They do recognize our value. They recognize the need for our industry, but really somehow there's really a need to shift the focus from them placing restrictions on our industry to creative incentives, really encouraging more participation in this space so that we can develop more communities or more development with our products. Also, I wanted to mention that the Appraisal Institute has provided some appraisal training classes around the country. I have not attended one of the classes, but some of the other state execs had mentioned that they did attend the classes, and that's beneficial as well because those state execs are at those trainings providing additional information and education from the industry.
I just got a text that I was looking at a moment ago that said, don't forget to mention how the state executive directors are reaching out to these other organizations and actually providing information and educational information on what is going on. I think, Scott, do we have another one or are we at our end here?
Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. All these questions were pointed to affordable housing. There were some that had to do with infill housing and whether your states were involved in any of that. But I think the gist of it is, how are we helping cities and municipalities and communities to look at manufactured homes as a solution wherever they are, and to set aside some of the restrictions that are keeping us from fulfilling that role now. And I think you've pretty much answered those questions.
And I think a lot of that will happen too when we get more developers actually going out and trying to develop. I know we have there's a lot of folks right now who are buying larger acreages of land who are looking at it, going out and trying to do developments of the larger homes and the newer homes that are going out that will be Fannie and Freddie eligible. And I think once one or two of those get up and running, we'll be able to take them to Colorado, be able to take them to Alabama and talk about doing that. Hey, don't forget, while the playoffs are going on and you're watching the hockey playoffs, don't forget every 2 weeks, these are happening. Every Thursday at 2:00 Eastern time, set your clock. Next one will be Leveraging Innovation with Paul Barreto. That'll be Thursday, August 13th at 2 p.m. We are not stopping there. We have had such a good response. And by the way, guys, today, so many people. This is, I think, one of the largest numbers that we've had on one of our webinars. In large part, probably because we have two great speakers here with us today. Thanks, Lance. Thanks, Tawny, for being here. You brought a great crowd out to us. We'll have a new schedule of events up in 2 weeks when we do the Thursday meeting with Paul Barreto, because after that, this became so popular, we're going to keep going with it. These are free. These are good for our executive directors to send out to their members to be a part of as a member benefit. If you want to learn more about them, or if you want to see some of the ones that we've already conducted, go to learnmh.com. And if you want to know more about more from Tawny or more from Lance, there are their contact informations that we have on this. Again, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Let's go Caps. Let's go Caps. My Rod Langway autographed jersey, Secretary of Defense. He's going to be back there making sure that the Capitals fight their way to the next Stanley Cup. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you in 2 weeks with Paul Barreto. Thanks for joining manufacturedhomes.com for our webinar series. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.